Hi everyone. Hello, and again, I've started wearing a headphone for no reason. Hello and welcome to today's show. If you are listening to this in audio format at a later point in time, you're probably doing so on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, etc. And if you are, please leave a rating or a review wherever possible and share the podcast with your friends. If you're here today on the YouTube channel listening to the live stream and you're in the chat and asking questions already, hello to the 9 people who are already here. Uh, know that today's episode is actually very personal for me, and this episode has been coming for quite some time. So, in a nutshell, here's the situation. I write about the Bhakt ecosystem, the Indian right wing, the cultural right wing, the I write about contemporary Indian politics, and much of it has to necessarily be about the toxic practices being introduced into Indian society by the right wing. I have been doing live streams on Instagram and YouTube and other platforms for close to 2 years now. And throughout all of them, I have been speaking about all this and I've been writing about all this. And those of you who are regular there on my live streams and podcasts know something about me, which is that I used to be a Hindutva supporter. I used to be a BJP supporter. I used to be a full on right wing nut. The extent of my nuttiness is debatable because you can always find someone nuttier than one nut and someone less nuttier than that nut. But the broad fact of the matter is that I was a Hindutva supporter and a right winger. And obviously, things have changed. Those of you who have been following me for a long time know about this because I keep talking about this. I have never really made a secret out of it. I have never really refused to answer any questions about it. I have been very open about it. And that all is not even because I'm a great guy. It's because I think this is how things should be. One should not get a pass for the wrongs they have done without acknowledging the wrongs that they have done. That is what I believe. However, because on the internet, social media is a weird thing. Suppose I write something today and a year later or even 6 months later or even 1 month later something happens and somebody asks me my view about it. I cannot find the old post and send it to them because on Instagram things disappear, on Twitter things disappear. So even though I have spoken many times about this, there are many people who don't know about it. There are many people who are coming to know about me just now, having read a piece of having read an essay or something that I have written and I've shared on social media, or someone who has followed me in the last 4 months or 5 months or 2 months, and they have somehow missed this thing. So whenever this thing comes up, there are always a few people who are surprised to note that I used to be a right winger. So this podcast, this video, this live stream, whatever this is an attempt to make clear once and for all what I was, why I was that way, how the change happened, and an option to let you all question me on anything you like. Because again, I will repeat, there is nothing to hide. I have made mistakes in my life, many mistakes, and I'm not proud of everything I've done in my life. But I have, I hope, always been honest about them. This podcast was a suggestion that has come from so many people so many times that I have lost count. But for some reason, I kept putting it off. One reason or another reason, not for any specific reason, I kept putting it off in hopes that there must be a there must be a perfect way to put this across. There must be a way where I can present the best case forward. And I have realized that that is never going to happen because difficult things need to be said in a manner, uh, in whatever manner possible, and I hope that today will clear that up. So what I will do is that I've already seen a bunch of comments with questions in the tab. I'm going to give you a brief overview of who I was, what I believed, and how things changed. And after that, I'm going to look at the comments, and whatever questions you have, please keep leaving them in the live chat. I will do my best to answer all questions. By the way, this may be a little late to ask, but I hope audio video is okay. Uh, Hold on. Oh wow, wonderful. I forgot to keep water today. Of all days, I forgot to keep water. So here's the thing. You know that I am someone who's very interested in mythology, and I have written mythological stories, texts, non-fiction about mythology, essays. I've written a 10-issue comic book, etc. So my attachment to my religion of birth, which is Hinduism, has been strong. Not since childhood, but when I left home to go live in an alien town, it grew stronger because I missed the culture of my home. And this caused me to delve deeper into literature, contemporary literature about Hinduism and Hindu thought, etc., etc. So at some point around 2012, what happened was that I started entertaining more and more books and literature from Hindutva supporters. These will be NRI scholars, Brahmin scholars, basically, and people who have been who are generally of the view that something there is something great, ancient, and divine about Hinduism. Like, the followers of any religion believe so, and they started affecting me on a more personal level, because you read about a mythology from another country, and it has a certain effect on you, as in wow, sublime, beautiful, etc. But when you read about something that you have been born to believe, you have been brought up to believe in, it has an additional impact, and that impact is, I guess, pride is the right word to describe it. So what happens is that once my attachment to my religion of birth was strong enough, I was exposed to political writings by people whose writings I personally did not consider political because I was clueless. And after that, the the kind of contact I had with these writers, it increased, and in some kind of algorithmic way, I suppose, I was drawn deeper and deeper into the kind of thought that people are talking about, the kind of thought, the worldview that we describe today as the Hindutva worldview, the Bhakt worldview, or the right wing worldview, the cultural right wing, and I was drawn into it around 2013. Yeah, I think it was January of 2013 when I joined a publication called Niti Central as its features editor, and my job was to edit features. These would be opinion pieces, and there was hardly anything else. There was a news side of the website, and there was a opinion side of the website, and I was in charge of the opinion side of the website. I used to write pieces, I used to edit pieces by other people. Again, all of it right wing. The website was very decidedly right wing, and its goal was to promote a right wing narrative, and I was part of that. And of course, 2 years of that happened, and I was a right winger. And I have written things that I'm not proud of. I have said things that I'm not proud of. The website no longer exists. But if you look really hard, you can find old tweets of mine promoting articles from that website. So if anyone is interested, you can do so. My views of that time were wide. Like, for example, I used to believe that conversion should be criminalized in India because Hindu खतरे में है, or that Hindus are a minority when you look at the world global picture, where Islam and Christianity are large, and large numbers of Indians are getting, large numbers of Indians are getting converted to Abrahamic religions, and if this goes on, our religion will die. And my views were also about how Muslims are not really in danger. What they really needed was reform. I remember writing a piece where uh, I made fun of liberal Hindus who say that some of my best friends are Muslim. And I was like, if I was a Muslim, I would feel really bad about that, because it is minority appeasement that is keeping Muslims backward, and liberal Hindus are not doing them any favors. I believe that Taj Mahal was a temple, a Hindu temple, which had been converted into uh, a Muslim makbara. I believed a whole lot of stupid garbage and a lot of toxic stuff that I recognize now to be toxic. But my viewpoint back then was that Hindutva is a force for good, and that if India becomes a Hindu Rashtra, everyone will benefit from it. And those who oppose it are clearly enemies of India. Now, this might not be a surprise to you because you now see this view propagated everywhere. But around 2013, this view was just taking birth. Like the philosophical underpinnings of these views are quite old. They go as far back as pre-independence. We have all seen and read about it, and we have talked about it before also, and we will keep talking about it. But in 2013, in a burgeoning online ecosystem, this kind of, right now there are a lot of right-wing scholars, right-wing experts, right-wing right-wing portals fake news websites basically. But back then there was just Niti Central, and I was the features editor of it. And a large part of the narrative that is floating around even today was the creation of people like me. Yeah, creation of me and people like me. And that is something that will forever haunt me, because a huge part of the, like, you've all seen my writings these days, right? My writings from those days are the things that I am basically responding to. Half the time when I'm making fun of a bhakt, I'm making fun of the person that I was back then. Now, what happened after that was that uh, the job ended in 2014. Narendra Modi became prime minister. The job ended. I moved to another city and started working on a YouTube channel, which was again based on Hindu mythology. So my connection with my religious identity, the content that I make, remained, but it was kind of sort of removed from the political context of it. I supported the BJP under the idea that the BJP coming to power will be good for India. There was also a somewhat large anti-Congress sentiment sweeping the country, which we now know to have been the work of right-leaning organizations themselves. But it was not apparent to me back then. I thought this is like a genuinely revolutionary movement. Again, the whole media packaging of the thing, the India against corruption movement, the Aam Aadmi Party thing, that all played a role in it. But by and large, I thought this was a genuine groundswell of emotion in favor of Hindutva, and I, for one, was happy about it. And people ask about the track record of Narendra Modi till then, about Godhra, etc. I, because the election campaign of 2014 was not fought for the most part on communal grounds, because they kept talking about development, development, development. I fell into the trap of thinking that, yeah, sure, this will be development oriented. Hindutva itself is something progressive, and that, and I was obviously, no small part of me believing this had to do with my own upper caste privilege, which back then I did not even know that it existed. And then 2014 happened, and Narendra Modi won, and I was happy about it. I figured mission accomplished, and I will go over and do something else now, and I did. By the end of 2016, I left it in 2014, middle of 2014, end of 2014 actually. Beginning of 2015, when I was starting my new job, I was still optimistic. But by the middle of 2016 or the end of 2016, it became apparent that this was not going to be better than the Congress. The same old shit, the same old policies, the same old bad decisions. And I figured, okay, so right, so we had Congress for some time, and now we have another something like Congress. It did not occur to me till then that it was going to be worse than the UPA years. That started in that started right before or around the time of demonetization, which was in 2017, I think. And after that, my opinion of this government went like, this is a bad thing to be happening to this country. These are terrible decisions. These are these are things that should not happen. However, the penny still had not really dropped, because what really turned, like, I went from supporting them to not supporting them, but I was not really at a place where I was opposing them as vocally as I do now. And that started when JNU and Jamia happened, when police brutality happened, where college going students were hurt, where innocents were beaten up, and the police watched, and the government did not do anything to support them, and even the government in power, the opposition parties did not do much to stand by the people who are being oppressed. And it was very clear, there was no hiding it. Like, people these days will make up excuses about ye hua tha, wo hua tha, but during those days it was very clear that they did not even want to hide it. Then something, like, immediately, probably a couple of weeks after that, the anti-CAA movement happened, and it was again very clear. Like, we talk about life is not good and evil. There are gray areas. There is good and bad, and there is bad and good. Those days were just pure evil. There is no other way to describe it. They were pure evil. Innocent people protesting for their rights were being hurt by the government, whose job it was to protect them and to serve them. And that flipped a switch in my head to the extent that I started re-examining everything. Because in my upper caste Hindu privilege, seen I had not seen the things that I then saw. And it became very apparent to me that this was wrong, obviously, but also, how could I not have seen this? And that actually started me on a journey of examining my own beliefs that led not only to me becoming anti right wing, but also a vocal atheist, a vocal, uh, like someone who understands caste privilege, someone who openly opposes it, and someone who writes about it. Someone who writes about it, does live streams, podcasts, this shit included. And hmm, something interesting happening in the chat, but we'll get to it. Please keep leaving your comments. Then what happened was that I told you I moved to another city and I worked at some other place. And then this all happened. And eventually that job also ended. And I moved to another place where I am now and I work out of. And people ask, what changed your mind? It was never one thing that changed my mind. I told you that Jamia and JNU were trigger movements, but Jamia and JNU were basically a point in time where I got to, like, this whole thing in my head where Hindu Khatre Mein Hai was there became faded. And I started thinking on the lines of, I am not in danger, I am the danger. I know it sounds badass when you look at it from a Breaking Bad, like it sounds like something from Breaking Bad, but I am the danger. The people who I represent, the people who are from my socio-cultural background, the people with my religious and caste privilege, we are the ones who are actually doing the damage, and everyone else is getting damaged. The anti-Muslim violence that I saw then, the anti-caste violence that has been happening since then, were things that before that I would have said, yeah, it's a big country, things happen. But only at that point did I start on a journey where I started seeing as this all is happening in my name, and this all is being done by people who say they want to do it for me, and this all is actually being done by people like me. For several months after that, I remember thinking, and I have spoken about this many times. I remember speaking about this many times with the live chat on Instagram. I have said that all the lives that I lost, all the houses that are burned down, I feel like I have done that. Like all that blood is on my hands because I created this monster. Now, before I go further, I want to make something very clear. There are things in this talk that may sound like they're justifications of who I am and what I did. They're not. They're explanations. There can be no justification for the things that I did, for the simple reason that even if someone is monumentally stupid, one cannot be forgiven for the things like this. And forgiveness is not something that I'm asking for because I do not think that I deserve to be forgiven. I receive messages from people every once in a while who say that you were a bastard and I will never forgive you. And I completely agree with them because I myself am as hard as that on myself almost every single day. What I have done in the last 2 years is desperately trying to fix the mistakes that I made. I don't know how successful I am, but I do think that I have managed to bring together people who think like me and who have, miraculously enough, taught me so much. Taranga is in this chat. Eman is sometimes in the chat. Nadir is here. Anam often is here. Swapnil is here. These are people who have become a second family to me in ways that I cannot even, like, I would not have thought that this would be possible 2 years ago. But I've learned so much from them. I've learned to, like, take Ambedkar, for example, freedom fighter and, thought leader and well known historical figure. But upper caste Hindus hardly ever go beyond that. And Ambedkarite thought, which is basically the crux of it, would be that caste is at the root of everything wrong with India in one way or another, is not something I would have gone into had I not been in the company of these fine, extremely nice, extremely kind people. And people talk about how right wingers cannot change. I myself believe that many right wingers cannot change. But uh, I should also point out that there are that I would not be here today had it not been for the patience of my friends who never stopped talking with me, who never stopped trying to explain things to me. Pragya is a friend, Hemant is a friend. These are people with whom I have had conversations that if I rewind those conversations in my head, it's beyond embarrassing. It's horrible. Of course, all the horrible things that I face, all the horrible things that I feel pale in comparison to the horrible things that have happened to people because of the system that I enabled. And there is no comparing the two. But here we are. Here we are. And this took 20 minutes. I could have done this so many times in the past. I have done this in the past, but never in this much detail. If anyone has any questions about this, please ask in the chat and I will answer. Even if you have questions about this after, like if you're watching this video at a later point of time, uh, and you have questions that I have not answered in this video, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll be happy to make another video, podcast, or live stream where I will answer all of those. I have nothing to hide. I am I am resoundingly saying that I was wrong and that I have changed. I don't know if there is anything I can do to convince people that I have genuinely changed, and that I'm not simply, there was some talk about how people change sides frequently. I have changed sides, but while many people change sides to go over to the side that is more powerful, I have changed sides to come to the side that is not in power. And also, another thing that I wanted to point out is that, so how do I put this? Right. So, in response to a friend of mine made a post on social media, an acquaintance of mine rather, made a post on social media where he pointed this out, that I have changed and that it is hard to believe. And there were comments there, many of them were supportive. In fact, most of them were supportive. And a few people, however, pointed out that they will have trouble trusting me. And I want to tell them that it's perfectly okay to not trust me, and that people like me should not be trusted, and that it is not your job to find it in you to trust people like me. It is the job of people like me to gain your trust. And even if I manage to not gain your trust, that is okay. I am doing what I think is right, and I am doing it to fix a mistake that I made. And I think that what I am doing is good for all of us, including those who erroneously think that Hindu khatre mein hai. The other side of this is that there are many who are willing to forgive me, and that I should point out that being able to forgive someone like me is also a privilege. Many people who are happy to forgive me are Muslim, and they are simply looking for hope. They see someone like me and they say, okay, so change is possible, and that people can change their mind and people can go over to the right side from the wrong side, etc. They feel hope because they think that this can happen on a mass scale. There are Hindus who forgive me who also sometimes feel that way. But I want to point out that it is easier for Hindus to forgive me than it is for Muslims. And the reason behind that is that Hindus don't, upper caste Hindu, Savarna people don't suffer the way Muslims suffer because of the political dispensation, the political climate that is in force right now. So think about that also. I'm grateful for all the support, and I am humbled by all the positive messages that I have received over the course of the last 2 years. In response to every single time I have said this, people have come out in support and said that it is good that you have changed, and that changing is good, and that it shows this quality or that quality. I, however, am of the opinion that the suspicion that comes towards people like me, or rather me in this case, is justified. And that if someone is unable to trust me, it is not their responsibility to build trust. It is mine. And I will continue to do the kind of work that I have been doing. I'll continue to write, continue to make videos, continue to speak, and I hope that the mistake that I made, the person that I was, I hope that the effects of all that, I don't know how to finish this sentence oddly enough. I hope that I'm able to fix my mistake. That's all. Now to look at the comments. Um, Hemant says a few years back, Hemant is a friend. Hemant is one of the friends who has been speaking to me throughout these years. A few years back, I remember getting an early morning call from you. My memory is hazy. I may have been sleepy, but I remember you basically admitting you had been wrong about everything and you apologized for what you had been up to. I'm happy that the fog had finally lifted from you and then you got on the path you're on currently, but we never discussed when and how the penny dropped for you. Well, I just explained all of that. But thank you for the message, Hemant. Amar says, please turn into a Bhakt Vima for a few minutes, just like Akash Banerjee does. Okay. We're not, this is not that kind of a live stream, guys. Mm, Night Sky Star says, in one of your live videos, there was a question about if you know anyone who used to be a Sanghi and has changed their mindsets, and you said you didn't know anyone. You could have given your own example. I assumed that you were talking about someone who was not me, and I probably also assumed that the person asking this question knew about my past. Clearly, they didn't. Samarth is here. Hi, Samarth. I'm going to skip these. I'm going to focus on the questions today. Um, Piyush says engineering campuses suck. They shield you from everything political. Yeah, I was not even an engineer, so that excuse is not also available to me. I was a humanities student. I am a humanities student still, in possibly every possible way, and I have written about humanities being important and how uh, the things that humanities teach are essential to the workings of a healthy democracy. And the reason a lot of bhakts tend to be engineers is because they don't have adequate exposure to the humanities. Piyush says, इस पे अब कोई conspiracy theory बनाने वाला है विमो beware. Ankit says, I remember you speaking in BJP podcast during the lockdown. Yes, there is a podcast called the BJP podcast, Bharatiya Janta podcast, and I spoke about this on that podcast. Nadir says, your honesty has always been endearing. You bring vulnerability while also acknowledging your privilege. Thank you, Nadir. Your honesty has also been very endearing, and I hope your health is better. Taranga says, surprise is even understandable given that a lot of people have barely lived 5 minutes in terms of their reading, and most of that reading is on social media. Yeah. Battlestar Yushiromiya says, one question. Are more Hindutva supporters also starting to introspect? It seems that Hindutva thinking is very common among the youth as well. Yeah. So I think one of the reasons behind that is that 2014 was what? 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20, 8 years ago. So kids who were 18 now were 10 years old back then. They have basically grown up in an atmosphere of Hindutva. They have grown up in an India where religious polarization is at its highest. So it is not really surprising on that front to see that young people are migrating over to the right wing in such huge droves. But it is also true that at some point there is going to be some kind of fatigue. Like I can imagine these same young people at the age of 30 being as disgusted with the BJP as our parents were with the Congress when they were 30 years old. One of the funny things that I have encountered in the last few weeks, I think, is that they're trying to turn the education system into something that teaches Hindutva in various small ways. And one of the drawbacks of that is that kids always hate their textbooks. So whatever you put in a textbook will become something kids dislike when they grow up. So please bring in all the Bhagavad Gita you want to teach in schools. Rational says spirituality is a branch of religion. Okay, different. We're not talking about those guys, those topics today. The Batman Begins says, I am stupid, still regret about my vote. Nadir says, Batman, we all live and learn. It is a crazy world where reality is difficult to ascertain. Anandre, hey, thank you for becoming a member. Thank you so much. Taranga says, I just don't like when the surprise is stretched to stupidity and gatekeeping, especially from privileged majority community folks who are acting as if they were born with an anti right wing stance themselves. Tell me about it. Number of Hindus who think they're liberal but are not in any way imaginable. Like they will talk about their how proud they are to be Brahmin, how Hinduism is somehow uh, how Hinduism somehow has an existence without caste, is that the number of such people is not small at all. And of course, there have been takes on social media about this that are somewhat cringy, but today is not the day for that. Today is the day to hold me accountable, and I will not let anyone take that attention away from me. Like, I can say a lot of things about a lot of people, but that is not helpful. If the purpose of this live stream and podcast is to talk about what I did wrong, then it should be about this. Because one of the easiest things in the world is to say, what about those people, they've also done something wrong. वो तो हमको हर जगह दिखता है। उस धर्म को क्यों नहीं बोलते, वो लोग भी तो करते हैं। उस देश को क्यों नहीं बोलते, वो लोग भी तो करते हैं। इफ आई गेट क्रिटिसाइज्ड फॉर अ टेरेबल थिंग दैट आई डिड एंड आई से उन्होंने भी तो किया था, उस धर्म के लोगों ने भी तो किया था, वो भी तो प्रिविलेज्ड है, then I am engaging this in the same kind of whataboutery, and I don't think that is how things should be done. But by the way, I know you were not asking that, Taranga. I just drifted off. The Batman Begins says, I voted my first vote for Modi ji in 2014 and thought that Muslims need to be tamed. I was stupid, but by end of 2015, I know a lot about their reality. I was also a Bhakt of Sadhguru. Thank you for saying that, Batman Begins. I mean, if you voted for Modi in 2014 for the first time, you were 18 then, which means you are now 18 plus 8 कितना होता है? 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. You're 26 years old. Okay. Piyush says, don't blame yourself. It's the power structures that shield you from the truth. Yeah, I think it is important to blame oneself despite that. Because the moment I shift the blame over to, like, I am a huge fan of holding social systems responsible for the kind of influence they have on individuals. But uh, I am also someone who thinks on an individual level, one should, like, this discomfort that comes from, like, whenever you find that you have done something wrong, one of the first things that comes to the surface in your mind is that, yeah, but I had reasons, right? And I think it is healthy to fight that, to tell yourself that you think you had reasons and those reasons were not good reasons, so shut the fuck about those reasons and focus on the thing that you did wrong so that you may fix it. Social systems, yes, they do have an influence. I, for example, did not know a Muslim person until I was in college. My childhood was not spent among any members of the minorities. I come from a small town and it was pretty much all Hindu. मैं घर से निकल के 2 स्टेप राइट को लोगे तो एक मंदिर मिलेगा जिसको मेरे खुद के दादा ने बनवाया है। और मैं मेरे घर से निकल के मेरे गाँव तक जाओगे तो रास्ते में 4 मंदिर मिलेंगे जिसको मेरे दादा ने बनवाया है। I was steeped in Hinduism. Nadir says, हाँ Taranga, before I saw my community get more and more pushed to the corner, I too was pretty much an upper caste class ignoramus. That is very generous of you to say, Nadir. Samarth says, I did not vote in 2014 because I was in college farm for my constituency, but I did vote in 2012 UP elections for Congress. Okay. Piyush says, just keep doubting and questioning power structures, you will get to know stuff. Yeah, that is perhaps one of the single biggest changes that has come into my way of looking at things. Understanding of power structures and understanding that the reasons Hindus think they are in danger in India is the same reason that white people think they're in danger in America. यहाँ पे people talk about how Hindu festivals को celebrate नहीं करने दिया जा रहा. There they talk about a war on Christmas. So in every country where public discourse is a thing, the majority will always try to say things like हम लोग डेंजर में हैं, हमारा वे ऑफ लाइफ खतरे में है, ये जो माइनॉरिटी और मार्जिनलाइज्ड लोग हैं ये असल में बहुत इंसिडियस ईवल हैं जिनको या तो टेम करना चाहिए या तो इरेडिकेट करना चाहिए. ये हर जगह होता है. Before 2014, like the idiot that I was, I would have thought that there was something specifically different about Hindu angst. And there are still right-wing scholars who propagate this bullshit all the time. That the reason Hindus are persecuting Muslims is because it's pent-up anger from when Mughals ruled India. It's not. It's just plain old majoritarian bullshit. Those are fancy excuses given to all these things, but they're not. Aditya Verma says, Nadir says, Batman Sadhguru, me too for a very short time. Taranga says, hey, Nader, it is not like I knew anything substantial about anti caste discourse before I was in my master's. It is our friends who help us step out of our privilege and remove our blinkers. Yes. Hmm. द बैटमैन बिगिन says, बहुत क्यूटिया काट रहा है वो लोगों का उसे। अच्छा, ये किसी और की बात कर रहे हो। सुदीप्तो says, did the job end because Modi became PM? Uh, it's complicated, and I'll probably be giving up professional information if I answer that question. But suffice it to say that the company continued to exist for some time after I left. I resigned, and the reasons behind that are also slightly more complicated. But yeah, the job did not end because Modi became PM. Sant Balak says, what took you to the right ideology? Did you buy into victim play? Yes, I did. This whole Hindu Khatre Mein Hai thing that is still being pushed, by the way. Like, a violence happens, a riot or a organized pogrom happens where Muslims are attacked. And then less than 24 hours later, you find fake news reports all over the place that Muslims started it. Now, it is not my case that every single time it happens, only people from one community are to be blamed. But it is my case that there is a very large media machinery, social media machinery, being put into the task of convincing Hindus that they are in danger. It happens through TV, through social media, through the speeches of political leaders, through filmmakers, untalented hacks who make films in order to promote enmity and hatred in a society as divided as ours. So ये जो मशीन है ये 24 घंटे चलती रहती है। तुम एक जगह महंगाई की बात कर दो या अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट की बात कर दो, कोई आके बोलेगा हिंदू का क्या, हिंदू खतरे में है। अबे जिनको नौकरी नहीं मिल रही वो भी हिंदू हैं, जिनकी जिनके जिनके जिनको इकोनॉमिक लॉस हो रहा है वो भी हिंदू हैं। और बाय द वे, अगर इस देश को तुम हिंदू राष्ट्र बना दोगे तो भी हिंदुओं का कुछ फ़ायदा नहीं होगा। देश की जो फंडामेंटल प्रॉब्लम्स है वो वहीं की वहीं रहेगी। Samarth says, I supported BJP in 2014 because of other reasons. Hindutva was never on my mind. It was just a vote of change for me, but 2016 changed everything for me. Samarth, I think that is something that I could have told myself. However, I think the reason, like, it's Hindu privilege to be able to say that I did not vote for the BJP because of Hindutva, because we all knew what the BJP is. And if we still chose them, then it's a function of our privilege, right? That we choose them and we say things like, yeah, I didn't vote for Hindutva. Batman Begins says, Charwag Lokayat, aapka channel hai na? Taranga says, one of the things most valuable for me in your writing and content is that you help those of us who have never been part of the organized right wing to understand how the right wing works, which helps us fight it. That's the goal. I suppose I'm like a I suppose I'm someone who has seen it from the inside, and I have participated in it and I have partly even built it. So, yeah. By the way, in case you have read Darshan, the old man's character is me. Samarth says in 2014, people who had never been to Gujarat were boasting about the Gujarat model. Yeah, that was a huge kaddu that was sold to us. पीयूष says Hindus का भी एक राष्ट्र होना चाहिए. On comparing with Islamic countries, this entitled feeling has led to the situation right now. Yeah. Nadir says, हाँ exactly. Help us come to term. By the way, if a Hindu says उनका अलग देश होना चाहिए, उनको बोलो you're welcome to make one. Go away and make one. This one is not going to be that. Nadir says, हाँ exactly. Help us come to terms with the current power plays and ideologically driven narratives. Thank you, Nadir. Um, Samat says demonetization November 2016. Ah, okay. So it was 2016, not 2017. The Batman Begins says ये वीडियो टॉपिक कैसे चेंज हुआ मोटिवेशन मार्केट से बिकॉज आई प्रिपेयर्ड माई माइंड फॉर इट विद वेरीफाइड डॉक्स. अरे सो I had planned to do it, but then this came up and I figured I should do this first. The next episode will be about the motivation market. Daniel Naroditsky says, what do you make of Gandhi as casteist? And it was because of his religion. Of course, it was because of his religion. You think people from non-Hindu backgrounds are going to make up stories about how the Dalits are actually Harijan? Gandhi was an upper caste Hindu. and his views about caste have been documented, and some of it is problematic. There is no reason to hide it or run away from it. Gandhi was a human being. He had faults, and therefore it is perfectly okay to call him out on the casteism inherent in his behavior. The period of time that I was talking about, 2014 se pehle wala, I myself used to go on Quora and write answers like, "ये caste वास्ट कुछ नहीं होता, मैंने तो कभी नहीं देखा caste." The reason behind that was that I myself have never suffered caste discrimination because I'm a Savarn. I'm from an upper caste background. The people who suffer because of something are the people who should be answering questions like that. This is why even now, sometimes I will get invited to a podcast to talk about feminism, and I will simply respond with, this person and this person and this person have done far more work on this than I have. Please invite them. I don't deserve this platform. Piyush says majority only cared about the business prospects from Gujarat model. They didn't care about Muslims who were killed in 2002. Yeah, and that again is privilege. To not have to worry about some things is privilege. The Batman Begins says ये वीडियो अच्छा ये तो हो चुका है. Ashwati says OMFG JNU and Jamia was my turning point. I never supported them, but I never felt the need to vehemently oppose up until then. Yeah, I think I wrote sometime in the middle of 2019 that even if Narendra Modi is not remembered for anything else, he will be remembered as someone who pushed massive numbers of Indian youngsters towards the left. Taranga says, Piyush, he did change the live stream topic a couple of days ago because someone brought his past up on social media. Yep. Sudipta says, some BJP dude threw a 6 kg rock at my head during CAA and now I don't go to rallies. Oh, wow. 6 kg rock at your head. Wow. Taranga says, lots in the chat. Do read from beginning. Yes. Nadir says, up until 2019, from 2014, I did not trust BJP, but I did trust my friends and other BJP supporters that they will not let that shit happen. But it kept on happening relentlessly, gradually. Everyone was silent. Yep. In fact, somebody on Twitter said the other day that they are not a Hindutva supporter, but they thought that our institutions were strong enough to make sure that nothing bad happens. And they were obviously, and perhaps you also, not expecting things to get this bad, like this systematic subversion of our institutions, etc. Messi says, Vimo भैया आपका शिफ्टिंग कोई स्पेसिफिक इंसिडेंट से हुआ या रादर जेएनयू जामिया? जेएनयू जामिया वाज अ ट्रिगर पॉइंट दैट बिगैन द प्रोसेस फॉर मी, एंड उसके बाद जो 2 साल हुए उस दौरान लेफ्ट के बारे में ज़्यादा पढ़ना, अम्बेडकराइट थॉट पढ़ना, एंटी कास्ट चीज़ों को अप्रिशिएट करना, एक्नॉलेज करना, ये सब हुआ. सो मैं अभी जहाँ हूँ ये सब जेएनयू जामिया की वजह से इंस्टेंटली नहीं हो गया, पर वहाँ से शुरुआत ज़रूर हुई थी. Vijay Ravi says, was the shift of the right wing also related to the point when you turned atheist? Was it at the same time? No. Atheism helped. Atheism was not caused by it. Uh, like, I'll tell you something. A lot of privileged Hindu upper caste people remain in the Sanghi bubble, not simply because of gravity. They are kept there because a lot of, like, if it's a room, you're not, if it's a bucket, you're not simply there because there is gravity. There is also ropes coming out of the bucket and tying you to the bucket. I know it's a fairly labored metaphor, but bear with me. If you turn the bucket upside down, some people will fall out, but they will not completely fall out. So these will be people who will say, yeah, क्या करें यार, बीजेपी बहुत प्रॉब्लम करती है, but क्या करें, alternative नहीं है. And the reason they say this is because their the strings that are attaching them to that bucket are caste, religion, maybe appreciation for a masculine father figure, and a whole lot of things. So, in order to get out of it, you have to, the ropes will not break, even if the bucket is upturned. That's why you're seeing that a whole lot of people who are unhappy about the economy are still holding on to the bucket, or rather attached to it. The strings that are holding them onto it are caste, religion, and all that other stuff. The way to get out of it is to be conscious of all of it. You have to grab that rope and break it yourself. कास्ट का, धर्म का, और बाकी सारी चीज़ों का. When you do that, you will fall out and you realize that there are other buckets that you can be in, or bucketless. You can be a bucketless person. I don't know why I started this metaphor. It's got out of hand. But I hope I made my point. Sriyesh says, hello, Sir Vimo. Hello, Sir Sriyesh. Oddly enough, I kind of remember you turning from atheist to believer after you watched a video of a Maulana in a news studio who remained stoic in a news studio amidst an earthquake. Yes, that was in 2004. और भी ज़्यादा past की बात है. I didn't go from atheist to believer. I went from agnostic to spiritual. That there is a longer video on my main channel called How I Became an Atheist. उसको देखो और अगर उस बारे में कोई क्वेश्चन है तो पूछो. Maybe I'll talk about, like, at some point of time my whole life is going to be on this channel. So I'm happy to explain that. Battler says, even I also stopped supporting this government after demonization and after CAA. Samad says, during CAA protest, I was working for the central government till 5 p.m. and then used to go for the protests. But best part was that the police never questioned me because I had the government ID card. The Batman Begins says, no, I have a lot to say about the frauds on YouTube. And one of my classmates giving lectures of motivation on Josh Talk without doing anything great, and a lot of stupidity and $1 billion market on fraud. Batman Begins, come back next week. We will do that live stream then. Like, then not next week, as in आज सैटरडे है, इस वेडनेसडे को करेंगे वो वाला लाइव स्ट्रीम. Piyush says, in 2018, I was thinking on working on increasing accountability of government spending money on national flag, colored lights, etc. Okay. Aditya Verma says, I am the danger. That is something that speaks to me as well, because, well, I am part of those that benefit from it all. Yeah. Batman Begins says, blood on my hands also because I voted for this stupidity in 2014. Yeah, it's on all of our hands. We who brought this evil into power are to blame for every wrong that happens as a result of it. And if we don't speak up about it, like, everyone will speak about it. Every sane, decent human being will speak up about it. But we personally are practically committing a crime by not speaking up about it, because our silence enables it. Our actions enabled it. And now at least we can speak up. And if we don't, we are enabling it even further. Piyush says, then within few months, CA NRC completely changed everything from 2% to 100%. Yes. Taranga says, forgiveness and friendship are our choices to make towards others. I definitely am glad to be friends with you. Thank you, Taranga. I am also glad to be friends with you. I don't make friends easily, by the way. Let's not go into that. Battler says, Vimo, it takes a lot of courage to admit that you made a mistake. You could have been a leading intellectual of the right wing, but chose this path. There are no intellectuals on the right wing. What I could have been on the right wing is someone who people praised because they agreed with him. That's all that happens on the right wing. There are no intellectuals on the right wing, at least in India. Because if you look at the intellectuals on the right wing, people who are described as intellectuals on the right wing, you find that they're completely oblivious to their caste bias, completely oblivious to their religious bias. There are people who are atheists and call themselves Hindu atheists. There is no intellectual foundation for these intellectual people. So yeah, I could have been some jackass who was happy in a bubble because people were saying, "Arey, sir, 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 sir." But yeah, that would not have been being a true intellectual. And I don't think I'm an intellectual in any way. I'm a jackass who made a mistake and is trying to fix it. Taranga sent a bunch of hearts. Thank you, Taranga. Hold on. Nadir says +1 Taranga on friendship and forgiveness and all that. Ronak says, oh, that was like friendship and forgiveness and all that. रौनक says, सर कैन यू एक्सप्लेन व्हाट इज स्पिरिचुअलिटी. रौनक अगले हफ्ते आके इसके बारे में बात करेंगे, आज वो टॉपिक नहीं है. Harkamal Singh says, hi Vimo, saw it yesterday. What happened on Twitter? What you are doing is commendable. It does not matter who you were in the recent past. What matters is who you are at the present. Harkamal, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. But I do think it matters who we were. Like, for example, person if a person set fire to someone's house and later on went and told them that I have brought you food, those people will be justified in mistrusting the intent of that person. So that, like, you have said this and I appreciate it, but if someone does not say this and say that your past does matter and you should be ashamed of it, I agree with them, because I am ashamed of it. Nazu says that was very moving and brave. Thank you, Nazu. Your support is very much appreciated. Samad says, owning up to your shit is one of the best things we can do. Please don't feel sad about your past. You are doing a great service to the idea of India that we have known. Thank you, Samarth. However, um, I don't think I'm doing a great service to India. Like this is probably the equivalent of stabbing someone and trying to bandage them after taking the knife out. And to receive praise for this feels weird. I have said so many times on my live stream. People there is a short clip on this channel itself where people say like because of people like you, the country will change. And these people often don't have any idea that the reason the country changed for the worse was because of people like me. So I don't deserve credit for doing the things that I do. If anything, give credit to the people whose work, whose writings, whose constant work on the ground has kept these values alive so that I can study them now. Nadir says, I am at peace comparatively in spite of the political situations in the last 2 years because of people like Vimo and Taranga. Thank you, Nadir. That actually means a lot to me. Piyush says you could have become a Devdutt Patnaik, but you got saved. नहीं यार Devdutt इतना बुरा नहीं है Devdutt. Wasim says, do you think in 20... Oh, by the way, Devdutt Patnaik is not a right-wing scholar. He's someone who he's an explainer. I may have problems with some of the things that he says, but I don't think he's a right-winger. He is a privileged upper caste Hindu male, and some of his work shows this. And I think that a whole lot of I know many right-wingers who absolutely hate him, but I also know that some of them at least use his work as justification for their beliefs. Wasim says, do you think in 2022 apatheism is more relevant than atheism or agnosticism? Apatheism is not really a philosophical position. It's a fancy word somebody made up to define atheists who don't care whether God exists or not. Atheism and agnosticism are philosophical positions, so there is no comparing the words. Aditya says, I have a similar journey from right to left. Samanvay says, correcting yourself is the best quality a person can have. Please don't blame yourself too much. I like the fact that you added too much. Do I have something to say on this? I think I have something to say on this, but I'm forgetting what it is. Anyway. No, hold on. I remember now. Uh, I said earlier today in this live stream that like somebody said that like when a social media post by that acquaintance of mine kind of appeared on social media, somebody said that they did not know and that I should have made this clear. The problem is that I have made this clear several times, in fact tens and twenties of times, on my live stream and in conversations with people and in private conversations like Hemant pointed out. But obviously I cannot put out something that will be seen by everyone because someone or the other will always miss it, and then it is my job to send them a resource. However, because I did this on Instagram live, I could not send people to Instagram to search for it because Instagram live videos are notoriously unsearchable. This is why I'm doing this on YouTube. This is episode number 55 of the live stream. From now on, whenever someone asks, I can simply say, yes, I have talked about this. Please go watch episode 55 of my live stream. So that is what I do. The reason I don't appear to have apologized for it is because the nature of social media is that not everyone gets to see everything. Wait, did I talk about the comment or did I talk about something else entirely? Anyway, Taranga says, you have done this sharing exactly on Insta Live and you cried, and many of us cried with you, shaking my head. Like I said, it is people's individual choice to believe or trust in others. Yeah. So, yeah, again, like, yeah, this part is true. I have spoken about this previously on my Instagram Live at some point, and I cried while doing it. And the response was similar. People were extremely supportive. But the guilt that I have felt as a result of my past has never left me. Like, we feel bad when we see news about violence, and there is an extra dimension to that for me every single time. It always feels like I did this, and that's because I did this, and that feeling is never going to go away. Now my choices are: I become defensive, or I talk about it, or I say that this is wrong, or I do the things that I do already. And that's what I try to do. Sushri says, I see most people in my dad's friend circle are pro BJP and ultra religious. I was not very religious to start with, but I never felt in my life that Hindu khatre mein hai, not even for once in my life. Consider yourself fortunate, Sushri, because the propaganda machinery that is in effect even right now to convince Hindus that they are in danger is overwhelmingly powerful. Like, I know people in my own extended family who get all their news from badly made Facebook videos and WhatsApp forwards. All they hear from morning till night. Like, if you look at alt news, right? If you look at alt news, every single day, someone there is news of someone finding an old video from 7 8 years ago of someone hitting someone and giving it a spin and calling this guy a Muslim name, the guy who's doing the violence a Muslim name, and the guy who's getting hit a Hindu name. Because this is not even innocent. This is not even people thinking that this is happening. This is someone consciously putting time and effort into trying to convince the entire country that Muslims are bad. And then there are people who have no media literacy, don't know how to consume and process news, people from our parents generation and even younger people. And that is why this happens. This machinery is overwhelmingly powerful. I'm so glad for the existence of fact checkers like alt news, who, whose job it is from morning till night to debunk all this shit. Battler Shiromaya says, Piyush, what is wrong with Devdutt Patnaik? For me, the disgust of the right to him was what started my awakening. Yeah, I I have already made an episode about Devdutt, so I don't want to talk about it. Saurav Devnath says, how your view on feminism has been changed. My view on feminism. My view on feminism was actually okay. So here's the thing. There is something called Brahminical patriarchy. And earlier on, when I would talk about feminism, I would simply probably talk about a woman having the right to make decisions for herself. And now my view, that view is also informed by the fact that uh, there are systemic, religious, socio-cultural systemic pressures that keep women subjugated to a system that has been designed to preference men. So that is, I think, how my view on feminism has changed. Um, Daniel says, what would you have answered when you were a Bhakt, Gandhi or Godse? I think I would have said that Godse was just another freedom fighter and not, you know, Gandhi and Godse are both symbols. They have been long dead. Gandhi represents some things to some people, Godse represents some things to some people. However, Godse worship clearly in this day and age is an indication of the fact that you don't want India to be secular and that you don't want India to be a place where everyone lives. So my view back then would have been, I think Epified channel पे गोडसे के ऊपर एक video है. I did not write it, but I think that adequately represents my opinion of it. John Dorian says, thank you for making this Vimo. I remember asking you a few months ago to make this video since it would be potentially inspiring to bugs to question their ideas. I'm going to share this. Thank you, Dorian. I mean, thank you, John. I don't know why I said Dorian. Sorry. Tanga says, if we totally give up hope, then there is nothing to work at to change how things are. But also, a generally circumspect person like me does trust when someone walks the talk in terms of change. What do you mean, generally circumspect? You're extremely gullible. No, I'm kidding. Piyush says, Battler, it's nothing. It's just Hinduism versus Hindutva argument. There is no difference. If you didn't know till now, you will realize it on looking closely. Yeah. If you have more need for understanding on this, go to my main channel, youtube.com/Vimo, and there's a video on the main page called Devdutt, a response to Devdutt Patnaik. Watch it. उसमें मैंने detail में लिखा है. The Batman Begins as me, Hindu, and my Muslim both discussed lot of things from Zakir Naik to Sri Sri. He was a fan of Zakir Naik, but after some time he called me and told me you were right, he was fraudia. Then we both laughed. Okay. Acha, your Muslim friend was a fan of Zakir Naik. Acha. Yeah. Zakir Naik is a piece of shit, man. Golu is here. Hi, Golu. Happy birthday, by the way. Golu recently had a birthday. Everyone wish him. Nasif Muhammad says, would you describe Epiphyde's videos on Indian historical figures as right-wingers narrative? I made Epiphyde not for a right wing platform, but when I made Epiphyde, I was fresh out of the right wing ecosystem. So a number of things in Epiphyde do tend to promote right wing, like not right wing. So they you'll find on Epiphyde things like Hinduism has always been a tolerant religion, and that is a Hindutva talking point. But to many liberal Hindus, that seems like not a Hindutva point, but a proper Hindu point, which just goes to show that a lot of people who think that they're not Hindutva oriented are also being fed Hindutva stuff. So, in that kind of soft spiritual Hindu way, Epiphyde content was that, but it was not virulent right wing stuff. It was the kind of stuff that Hindus who are clueless about their own religion, like I was back then, believe. Very early, Adesh. Agastya said, kudos to you, man. It takes guts to accept that what you were in the past was problematic, especially when the current society rewards what you were. Your honesty earned my trust today. Thank you, Agastya. Eh, this is a very good question. RV says, is there any chance you can change your stance again and join RSS? No, RV, there isn't. And I will tell you why that is the case. This is not something that just you have asked, but a number of people ask this, and it's very heartbreaking. But I can totally understand why people like from the point of view of someone who has started reading or listening to my content in the last couple of months. They think, wow, ye to acha aadmi hai. And then they find out that this jackass was a BJP supporter back in 2015. They get hurt and they are disillusioned and they feel like I am a hypocrite. The point is that here's why I don't think I'm going to go back. There is a bubble, like the bubble is complete, there are no holes in it, and this bubble is the Hindutva bubble. I was in that bubble, right? I had no exposure to ways of thinking outside of Hindutva, ways of thinking that may tell me that what is happening is wrong, ways of thinking that may tell me that तू खतरे में नहीं है, तू मेजॉरिटी है, तू सबसे पावरफुल है, तू हेटेरोसेक्सुअल हिंदू अपर कास्ट मेल है, तेरे से ज़्यादा पावरफुल कम्युनिटी स्टीरियोटाइप इस देश में कोई नहीं है. But the Hindutva bubble keeps people thinking that they are victims, that they are smart for thinking that, and all that. Now I'm outside that bubble. And this bubble is not where I am right now, is not a bubble. It's a cup. There is significant openness in it. While being in the Hindutva bubble, it is possible to not be exposed to any leftist thought, anything anti caste, anything feminist, uh, anything progressive. But once you're outside it, you're still going to be exposed to Hindutva. So where I am right now, I'm exposed to all sides of the argument. When I was over there, I was not exposed to multiple sides of the argument. I was getting mostly propaganda news, like people are like the WhatsApp uncles of today. So I don't think I'm going to go back because I have a greater appreciation of the complexities of Indian society and the human condition. I did not have it back then. I thought I did, and people used to call me smart for that, but I don't think I was smart. My entire worldview was colored through this political lens that I was behind and didn't even realize because it was my cultural privilege. Now I can look at things. Uh, Now I can look at a wider spectrum of things and come to conclusions. So I don't think I'm going to go back. I'm not going to go back. I don't know if I can convince anyone of the fact that I'm not a hypocrite, but I hope that they believe me when I say that I'm not. I'm not a hypocrite. I am an asshole. I am a chutia for the things that I have done, but I'm never a hypocrite. I was there because I truly believed it. I am here because I truly believe it, and my beliefs have changed. I know this is hard to believe, and I cannot make anyone think that I'm right, but I do speak extremely sincerely when I say that I have changed. Skipping a few, Agastya says, even I was under the Modi spell in 2014, and it took me 2 years to realize how disgusting Hindutva had become. It was always disgusting. We didn't see it because we are upper caste Hindus. That's the fact. Anand Ray says, hi, props for this session, although I hope you managed to forgive yourself at some point. Any thoughts on arts, humanities students who are bhakts and remain so? The thing that I have written about arts and humanities being necessary subjects for people in order to understand what being a good citizen means remains true. However, what also remains true is that we don't actually teach arts and humanities very well in India. It is treated as a second hand subject for parents and students, but even those who study arts do it with such disdain that they don't actually take away the same lessons from it. So, the overwhelming number of people who are the products of our education system is still thinking like an engineer, still thinking like, when I say engineer, I don't mean science oriented, I mean engineer when, like, our engineering college ke products. Uh, the ones who are arts and humanities students who are bhakts and remain so are because they're not thinking. If you ask them about their humanities education, there will hardly be anything that they retained from college. And that, I think, is the reason. If we taught humanities well, if we had a solid liberal arts education program which allowed children to choose their areas of interest at a young age, not after 10th standard, after everything is gone down the drain, because people focus their entire school life on either math or science. If we had a solid liberal education system where children had the choice of choosing what they want to do in the rest of their life, then we might actually redeem the nation and the idea of the citizen. Bharatwadi Arjun says, I think that Hindutva will bring an Indian version of French Revolution and Age of Reason. No, it won't. Garbage does not create gold. Sagar says the best critics of a system are often those who have been taken in by it because they understand how the ideology seduces. That's the idea. What I mostly try to do in my writing is communicate what I do understand to people. Like, I know that I'm writing primarily to people who already kind of are on my side, but even among people on my side, there is significant misunderstanding of certain things. So that is what I try to communicate. Mm, Nader says India really won't like French secularism. Yeah, Hindus won't like French secularism. Harkamal Singh says, hi Vimal, love you for the work you do, and I always will. My only question is, how could you ignore the likes of Rana Ayub? She comes out of Gujarat Files book. Modi will always be a narcissist. I first heard about Rana Ayub after I had left Niti Central, or rather, when I was in the later half of my life at Niti Central. We met through a common friend and we had like a casual chit chat, but nothing more than that. I did not know about her book. Sushant says, were you aware of the riots perpetrated by Hindutva in the 90s during Advani's Rath Yatra? In the 90s, I was in primary school and I was not very politically aligned. My understanding of the Ayodhya Rath Yatra issue was that yes, violence had happened. But again, because I was a Hindutva person, I thought it was because Muslims had started it. Anand say, any thoughts on people with humanity? Okay, already answered that. Taranga says, Are tum mat bolo dost, main to bolungi about problematic privileged critiques of people who transition to their own side, as it were. What? Problematic privileged critiques of people who transition to their own side as अच्छा हाँ okay got it बोलो ना ठीक है. Sudipta says there are humanities nerds growing up polarized education wala point. As a 2001 kid, there are a lot of people doing this. As I said, it's because we don't teach humanities well either. Simply putting people in the humanities stream is not going to change their minds. The education system has to be reformed from the ground up to enable people to choose their ways of to like take this for example. I know friend of mine who at some point of life was working in a bicycle repair shop. He was in class 1 with me, and he used to draw like it was a god given talent in class 1. Imagine if this child had been told in standard 3, okay, tu math science english ki chinta mat kar, tu art pe focus kar. He would have been a national treasure by now. He would have been a visiting faculty at renowned arts colleges in Europe. वो साइकिल रिपेयर की दुकान पे काम कर रहा था when I was in class 6. We have a certain range as far as professional options go, and we force children to make those options their goal since the youngest of ages. If we did not do that, if the range of options was wider and the number of paths that children can take was wider, then we would not have this bullshit education system. Sure, we would not have as many engineers and doctors, but we already know what kind of engineers we're producing. Large amounts of engineers who come out of Indian colleges are unemployable because they don't have communication skills. I have data to prove it. Sushant says, were you aware of 2002 Gujarat riots? Yes, I was, and I was opposed to it. But in 2014, because they did not focus on the riots, because they said that we have made the Gujarat model, and because of my Hindu privilege, it was very easy for me to believe that things had changed and that Modi will be a good prime minister. That is what I spoke about earlier in this video also. My privilege made me think that change was possible in a place where I should not have thought that. Adesh Rohan Mishra says, we also want to know about the time you were a Golu winger. Battler says the basics of Hindutva ideology are quite old. I have found some blogs from 2010 which gave Hindutva talking points from Kerala. What is the link with your portal and the OP Indias of today? Uh, One person who was in Niti Central was a member of OP India and Swarajya magazine for some time, but I think he got fired for something I don't know. And for the most part, I don't think there is any other difference. There is no other link. Niti Central closed down before Swarajya and OP India started, I think. Or maybe not. I don't remember exactly. Archana says, hi, just joined. Sorry if you have already answered. How did you become a right winger? Archana, I've already answered this. If after this video ends, go back to the beginning and watch it, you will get your answer. Arun says, why does the right wing find the growing Islamic population dangerous? How does it endanger them? It doesn't. They need an enemy. There is only one way politics of this variety survives, and that is through fear and anger. If people stop being angry and afraid, then their politics will not survive. So they constantly create enemies. And in India, that enemy happens to be Muslims. In America, the enemy is maybe Mexicans who are coming from the south, or black people, or people of color. There is actually panic among white people that some research has shown that if things continue the way they are, then in about 20 years, white people will be a minority in America. And they make the same kind of halla gulla about it like Hindus do right now. ये मुसलमान का population अगर majority बन गया ना तो देखना क्या होगा फिर वगैरह वगैरह. So Shri Patnaik says, tell us the one thing that you did while being a right wing supporter, except voting for Modi and saying Hindu khatre mein, which you regret the most. I don't know. I think that I have conversations like Hemant was in this chat. I think I have had conversations with Hemant and Pragya about how uh, riots are started by Muslims and how Hindus don't start riots and that Muslims start riots, and that if the law is more stringent against Muslims, then riots will not happen. This is one of the things that I think I have said and that they opposed and that we fought over. And yeah, something similar and other related stuff. Also, I have said that conversion should be banned and that Christians are taking over India insidiously, etc., etc. A whole lot of right wing talking points, like the things that you're getting in WhatsApp forwards today. It wasn't WhatsApp forwards back then, but it was still in circulation, and I believed a whole lot of it. Jashmin Hazarika says, what were the books authors that really convinced you towards Hindutva? Ah, that's an interesting question. There is a book called Decolonizing the Hindu Mind by Kunrad Elst. There is a book called Breaking India by Rajiv Malhotra. There is a book called Indra's Net by Rajiv Malhotra. There were a bunch of soft Hindu stuff. There was a bunch of soft Hindu stuff also that I read back then, which was like uh, basically these were things written to inculcate pride among Hindu children for the fact that they were Hindu. And they were mostly written by NRI Hindus because the intellectual support for like either to matlab, if you have noticed there isn't much intellectual muscle. The intellectual muscle, whatever that might be, comes from the NRI Brahman crowd. And that is the source of the books that I was reading back then. And that is the kind of thing that softened me towards Hindutva. Piyush says, आज ही पापा से लड़ाई हुई as he is being a crybaby because mom is not there to cook for her. Mm. Nadir says, I live in a state where Shiv Sena is in power and I am grateful. And I have extended family who were targeted in 92 riots. Shiv Sena played a big role. Yes, life is complicated, especially for minorities. I prefer to see it as Bal Thackeray Shiv Sena and Uddhav Thackeray Shiv Sena. Leadership does change things. And of course, Shiv Sena is still a Hindutva party. Uddhav Thackeray continues to say that they're a Hindutva party. मेरे लाइफ का सबसे बड़ा जोक्स का सोर्स ये है जब कोई रैंडम सैफरन भक्त आता है और बोलता है you are being paid for by liberal parties like Shiv Sena. And I'm like, liberal parties like Shiv Sena? Liberal parties like Shiv Sena and TMC. दोनों ही लिबरल नहीं है क्या बात कर रहे हो um, Statutory warning: Kingdom of Rohan is the best. Everyone is welcome. Shailesh Babu says, I supported CAA because my dad told me after watching Republic TV that it was a good law. After reading a lot about politics and investing so much of time, I found out that BJP are absolutely evil. Yeah, the solution is to read more about stuff. And the mainstream media, at least Godi media, is not going to give it to you. Piyush says, functionalists का रोना है, हमारा culture, हमारा religion, etc. खतरे में है. What religion? It's just oppressive structures. Yeah. In fact, I'll point something else out about this. You point out that it's all oppressive structures and that all religions are oppressive structures, and they will say that Hinduism is not a religion. But when they have to defend religion, they'll say, Hamara religion khatre mein hai. It's flip flopping. It's flip flopping. It's being slippery all over the place. Battler says, as a former right winger, can you please shed light on why collective punishment is used as much to justify violence against other minorities when collective punishment is such an Abrahamic concept? Collective punishment is not an exclusively Abrahamic concept. The caste system is basically a system of collective punishment, right? An entire category of people by birth condemned to certain living conditions. An entire category of people by birth treated like they're genetically smarter. It's not an Abrahamic concept. And in case you have in case you need a mythological justification for it, look at the story of Parshuram. He wiped out the earth 24 times of all the Kshatriyas, including women and children. Collective punishment is a tribal relic. When you are at war with another tribe, you don't leave other people alive because fuck knows what logic. It's got nothing to do with exclusively Abrahamic thought. It's all over the place. Veritasium OP says any group of people who follows extreme thoughts is bad, including religion. Yash Kumar says if Muslims are 100% jihadists, so can we claim that all Hindus are also 100% castists? Of course not. But when I ask these questions from Bhaks, they get into much anger. Wait, what is the question? Acha, a Bhakt says that Muslims are all jihadists, and you say that Hindus are all castists. And yeah. So it's always easier to generalize those you don't like. We are nuanced and complicated, and there is much ideological diversity among us, but those people are all exactly like that. This is one of the criticisms of Star Trek also, by the way, because Star Trek में ऐसे कई alien species हैं, ऐसे कई planets हैं where the entire planet has one culture. Like Vulcans are all logical and Klingons are all war loving. So it's called the problem of a monoculture, an entire culture where everyone is exactly the same. And in recent times, science fiction has tried to change things and whatnot. Jashmin says, I feel most upper caste Hindu folks are unconsciously casteist. When they encounter strong criticism against caste system, they become reactionary. What it needs is education awareness on caste issues. Yeah. And education and awareness is not lacking. What it really requires is acceptance that one is wrong. And that does not happen often. So I think I agree with you when you say that most Hindus are unconsciously casteist, because they will say, yeah, caste is bad, caste violence is bad, but they're only interpreting caste as violence. They don't see caste when उनके खुद के घर में काम करने वाले लोग पिछले दरवाजे से अंदर घुसते हैं, या एक अलग कप से चाय पीते हैं, अलग बर्तन में खाते हैं, या नीचे बैठते हैं जब वो लोग ऊपर बैठे होते हैं, उनको लगता है ये सब नॉर्मल है, because they're not being violent towards them. But casteism is perpetrated in all kinds of ways, and this all is also violence. Hold on. मेरा फोन बज कर रहा है. Spam, I think. Hemant says, your take on remorse for being in majoritarian community. If you, so here's the thing: if remorse is not the word that you are comfortable with, just call it discomfort. It's healthy discomfort. It's discomfort that we need to embrace. इफ यू रिमेंबर शेरलॉक, बीबीसी के शेरलॉक का एक एपिसोड जहाँ पे शेरलॉक सपने में देख रहा है वुमेन्स एमेंसिपेशन वाला सिनेरियो, हिज एल्डर ब्रदर टेल्स हिम द फैक्ट इज दैट वी आर रॉन्ग एंड दे आर राइट. Until upper caste people get to thinking that we are wrong and they are right, this will not change. And before that can happen, they have to understand what wrong means. So yeah, awareness etc is key, but there are people who you can train about this and they will still behave and believe in the caste system, because शादी करते समय तो मैट्रिमोनियल वेबसाइट पे वही ड्रॉप डाउन मेनू क्लिक करना है ना, जिस पे अपने अपने कास्ट का नाम लिखा है. Sid V says, "Hi Vimo, what exactly changed your views towards religion and atheism? You did seem aware of intellectual arguments back then. Was the motivation personal that triggered that transition?" Sid, there is an entire video on my other channel. If you go to youtube.com/Vimo, you'll find a video where the thumbnail says how I became an atheist. Please watch that. Batman Begin says, अगर हिंदू बनना है तो ओपी इंडिया, पोस्ट कार्ड न्यूज़, स्वराज्य मैग, द इंडियोलॉजी, हिंदू वॉच एटसेट्रा न्यूज़ पढ़ो और शेयर करो. Arun says, would you consider your fight against BJP more important or the fight against Hinduism in general more important? The fight against Indian society, upper caste Hindu privileged society, because that is the source of the power of the BJP. The BJP, आज बीजेपी है, कल को चली जाएगी, कोई और पार्टी आ जाएगी, and they'll do similar shit. The Aam Aadmi Party has been criticized for going soft Hindutva. The Congress has been criticized for going soft Hindutva. The problem is the people like this guy who made this possible. If they are not changed, this problem will never be over. So fight, yeah, sure, the BJP going away will be a good thing, but it will not solve the problem. Jack says, do you think atheism will rise in Hindu community or Indian community? How do you see religion future in India? Well, if you ask some right-wing Hindus, they call themselves atheists. In fact, the number is not small at all. They call themselves Hindu atheists, which is a bullshit label, and I have talked about this. Last week, I was on a podcast called The Skeptic Show. If you guys have not seen it, please watch it. The whole thing is in Hindi, and I have talked about Hindu atheism, privilege, free speech, etc. So that might help. Hemant says, grew up in Gujarat, saw events of 2002, close Muslim friends had suffered. The 2002 state election results were eye-opening. Distrust and dislike for Hindutva firmed up then. Wish people had listened. Yeah. Milind has sent a super sticker. Thank you, Milind, for doing so every week almost. Abhishek says, don't you believe in redemption? Why do an AMA on this topic? Redemption does not happen without acknowledgement. This AMA is an acknowledgement. And it's also a way to have a resource to send people to whenever they ask about my saffron past. So अभी से जो भी पूछेगा मैं उसको ये वीडियो दिखा सकता हूँ. Redemption does not happen in silence. Redemption does not happen. मैंने घर पे बैठा, मैंने बहुत गिल्टी फील किया और वो हो गया. तुम्हारे काम में, तुम्हारे एक्शन में, तुम्हारे वर्ड्स में दिखना चाहिए. And that is what I'm trying to do. श्रेयस है, जिनको जिनको हिंदू राष्ट्र चाहिए वो नेपाल जाओ, जिनको इस्लामिक स्टेट चाहिए वो पाकिस्तान जाओ, इंडिया में इंडियंस को शांति से रहने दो. The Skeptic Show is here. Hi, this is the podcast I was talking about. Always loved listening to you. Thank you, man. Aditya says, JNU Jamia was also important for me. It started me to think about politics. Initially, I was reading to support BJP, but over time I left them. Okay. Milind asks in a super chat, there is always an alternative for me. It is nota button many a times. Milind, उससे कुछ फायदा नहीं होता honestly. अगर नोटा बटन दबाएंगे ना, सो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा ये होगा कि अगर नोटा के बहुत ज़्यादा वोट आए तो उस जगह पे इलेक्शन फिर से हो जाएगा और फिर वही लोग इलेक्शन लड़ेंगे. Nota, I used to think myself that Nota is a choice. And in fact, at some point of time in my life, I have even advocated Nota very firmly. But Nota does not work. If Nota button दबाने से अगर ये होता कि candidates बदल दिए जाएं, then it means something. पर candidate वही रहते हैं. So, I don't know. Deepak Lakhera says, Deepak Lakhera? Oh, sorry, Deepak Lakhera. I know someone whose name is very similar. What's your views on Gangadhar Adhikari thesis, Fabian Society, Yuri Bezua? What? I don't know what all you're talking about. Ashwati says, me too. I had faith in the institutions in this country. I still can't believe the spaces we learnt about in school, the ones that were revered, were hijacked so easily. Yeah. I think one of the reasons upper caste Hindus like you and me find it easy to believe that India will persevere through all of it is because our lives are not affected on an everyday basis on the ground level by the many broken parts of it. Those who are marginalized, those who are minorities are affected by it, but we are not. So that's what happens. Radical says, I have joined late, but did you really believe that Taj Mahal was a Hindu temple, or did you think that it is a useful thing to deny the role of Islam in making of Indianness? No, I really believed it. I'll even tell you, I read about it. Even right wingers laughed at this. There is this old man. There was this old man called P. N. Oak, who floated this theory, and he uh, made this popular, and a whole lot of people picked it up and they spread it around, and I did believe it. Uh, but there is another person called Michel Danino. He's a French writer who writes about Indian topics and also is somewhat close to the BJP, I think. I could be wrong. There was this mailing list where he wrote a long piece about this. You guys, please stop doing this. This just makes us look stupid. And then I thought, okay, thoda zyada ho gaya tha. Then I stopped. But for a duration of time, I actually did believe it. Hmm. Jack says, do you think atheism? Okay, already answered this. The Skeptic Show says, I forgot to ask you this the other day. You sound so cool on mic. Which mic do you use? This is an Shure SM58 along with a Behringer UMC22 audio interface. Arun says, I never outright supported BJP, but I have been guilty of spreading pseudoscience that they propagate. I guess I'm guilty. Yeah, we are all part of the same machine. Hindutva is not only supported by those who say, yeah, Hindutva. It's also supported by many who are on the fringes and are like, नहीं मैं हिंदुत्व को support नहीं करता, पर ताजमहल हिंदू मंदिर है. We are all part of the same machinery. We are all being exploited by the same system to different degrees and sometimes without our knowing it. Anand says, but you didn't realize this government was evil no earlier, so probably did, but do you think everyone did? What? But you didn't realize this government was evil no earlier? Some probably did, but do you think everyone did? I don't know what you're asking. I obviously cannot speak for everyone. I don't know what people go through in their minds when they look at bad practices. Maybe think, bad hai, par chalega. Maybe they're like, bad nahi hai, good hai. I cannot speak for everyone. Laksh says, Vimo, is there any hope for an end to this regime in the foreseeable future? If so, how? Elections. And yes, there is always hope. There is always hope. अभी आज की खबर है 3 स्टेट्स के बाई इलेक्शंस में बीजेपी बुरी तरह हारी है and there is news about the upcoming Gujarat elections. Also, like the Congress is kind of flexing muscle, etc. I don't know what will happen. I'll be really surprised if the Congress wins or something similar happens. But yeah, there is always hope. If I did not have hope, I would not be doing this. Samarth says, Bharatwadi Arjun, what do you think about most of the Indian unicorns? Okay, Bharatwadi Arjun has asked a question. Is entrepreneurial revolution taking place in India cause the future return of BJP? Samarth has replied, Bharatwadi Arjun, what do you think about most of the Indian unicorns having huge share of investment from China? Are Bhakts only going to boycott Chinese apps and not their money? Fair point. Ashwate says, how are people donating different amounts of money? There is a super chat button at the bottom of the live stream. That's how. Golu says, Vimo, I can't make friends easily. Exception, Golu. Yeah, you were except. So Golu, when I was in college, Golu was born, and he was a baby when I picked him up, and we became best friends. I used to carry him around, and he used to chew on my collar, and that's how. He had no choice in the matter. I was the only one around, so he had to use me as transport. That's how we became friends. Mm. Sridhar says, what is duty of right wing in politics? I don't know what you mean by that. I don't understand the question. Laksh says, Vimo, thoughts on cancel culture as it correctly to hold people as is it correct to hold people accountable for their prior statements, actions, even if they show remorse? Yes, it is. If someone is genuinely remorseful, they will accept it, they will apologize for it, they will do everything in their power to fix it. If they don't, then they face some inconvenience on social media. Calling people out for bad things they have done is always right. Always right. And cancel culture is not a thing. Nobody gets cancelled. Somebody messaged me that you are getting cancelled. I said, no, I'm not. मेरा लाइव स्ट्रीम वैसे ही चलेगा, मेरा पॉडकास्ट वैसे ही चलेगा। ये कैंसल कल्चर की बात करने वाले होते हैं प्रिविलेज्ड कैटेगरी के लोग, मेरे जैसे, जिसको थोड़ा इनकन्वीनियंस होता है। कैंसल कल्चर इज नॉट अ थिंग। Coronavirus says there is no intellectual in right wing. They are just good English speaking bugs. Yes. Ashwati says, I can't do that without making a monthly commitment. Na? You can. Like the payments that are coming through the super chat thing, you can just click the button and pay whatever you want. You become a monthly member, automatically you pay every month. That's the difference. I'll just remind everyone that there are other places also where you can support it. My Patreon is at patreon.com/Vimo. And if you want to make a one-time donation to my work, you can do so at vimo.stck.me. That's a webpage. It's my blog. You can donate through there also. And my podcast, where this audio will also go, is available at vimo.in. Now back to comments. बहुत comment है. I'll answer every single thing. Like मैं एंड तक पहुंचूंगा कमेंट्स के, ठीक है? 1 घंटा 30 मिनट हो चुका है, चलेगा. Nazu says India needs voices like yours, Vimo. Thank you, Nazu. Rational says you are just a small part of the right wing. In my opinion, you are blaming yourself a lot. No, I'm not blaming myself. I'm taking responsibility. Blame is useless. Like I said, that I'm not seeking forgiveness because I don't think I should be forgiven. I think the guilt that I feel, the anger that I feel at my past self, fuels what I do now. I'm not blaming myself. Blame is easy to do. I could blame myself and wallow in guilt. Guilt solves nothing. But it's good to have if it causes you to do something. Subhanshu says, don't you think that Dalits are hidden target but actual target? I agree. But I think there is a difference between the Dalit condition and the Muslim condition. So basically, the difference is this. The Dalit is jumping up and down. Mujhe dekho, right? Because their condition does not get attention. The Muslim is trying to hide. Mujhe mat dekho, mujhe shanti se jeene do. That is the difference. Yes, the Dalits are the hidden target and Muslims are being used as a scapegoat by the right wing so that attention can be diverted from the larger project of continued oppression of Dalits. But it is nobody's case that Muslims are not suffering because of it. They are, needlessly, for nothing at all. Taranga says, those people who say, अरे तुम्हें पहले बताना चाहिए था, are probably in a parasocial relationship. Haha. Tomorrow people will ask, Madhu Kishore, why didn't you tell me that you were leftist earlier? They may actually. There may be people who think that Madhu Kishore has always been a right winger. The Batman Begins as Vimo feeling the Salmon Bahi, what? Salmon Bahi syndrome. Now being human and charity for wildlife, but Vimo accepted his mistake, but don't know about Salmon Bahi. Salmon Bahi? Acha, Salman Bhai. Samad says Hindu Khatre Mein Hai is the new India's covenant that is passed on through generations. It is up to us as well what we teach the future generations for this to end. Yes. And the best lesson I think we can teach the coming generation is about understanding what privilege means, how it manifests in power structures, and how power structures can be different in different countries, and how power structures in India are decidedly leaning towards the Hindu side. Taranga says, PSA, everyone please make a practice to read about a person's previous work instead of following them for what they write one time, just now, and then acting surprised later. Taranga is really pissed about this thing, I guess. Sushri says, especially the upper caste Hindus who are 55 plus and has a smartphone, they get all these edited forwards and they say Hindu khatre mein hai. Yes. Our parents need a lesson in media consumption habits. They grew up in a time when अगर कोई चीज़ अखबार में छपी है मतलब सच ही होगी. Right? The printed word cannot be wrong. And now we live in an age when literally, and this is not even an exaggeration of sorts, literally 70 to 80% of everything you read has not been fact checked or is consciously a lie. They're not prepared for it. Medical misinformation, pseudoscience, cultural misinformation, historical misinformation, it's all like it has skyrocketed to an extent that has not happened in the history of the planet. In the last 6 to 7 years, last decade, I suppose, is probably a time when misinformation has caused entire democracies to collapse and massive number of people to actually die. Archana says, "Hi, just late. Sorry if you've already answered. When and how did you become a..." Archana, again, please go to the beginning of the video after this becomes live, after this video, after the live stream ends, and I've gone into that in detail. Taranga says, "Yeah, he did speak 20 minutes at the start of the stream on that only. He will save this video. You could always see it later." Thank you, Taranga, says Archana. Taranga says, "Please, I am the one who problematizes everyone and every piece of discourse. Monkey, 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 laugh, laugh, laugh." Messi, thank you for the 40 rupees super sticker. Grateful. Taranga says, "Golu, happy birthday." Okay, there are a few happy birthdays for Golu. Deepankar, thank you for becoming a new member. Much appreciated, friend. Samarth says, "By the way, those who become members today can link their Discord with their YouTube account to get access to members only voice chat." Yes, if you have become a member of this channel, a paying member, uh, download Discord on your phone or your computer and click on the link on the main page of this channel to join the Discord channel. There is a voice chat section that is accessible only to paying members, and we can talk about stuff there. Amit Kumar says, "Please guy, like karo video ko." Ashwati says, "We no longer have the option of making a one-time contribution. Did not find an old link which was there in the Insta bio earlier." You do. It is. I'll show you again. It is vimo.stck.me. This used to be scroll stack, but now the URL has changed. But vimo.stck.me is where you go. I say stck because it's supposed to be pronounced stack, but some people say stake, some say stock. I don't know what to call it. Ronak says, "Sir, modern spiritual, please don't call me sir. Is modern spiritual leaders are propagating Hindutva ideology like Sadhguru by luring them into spiritual and then religious?" Your thought? Yeah, spirituality sometimes, spirituality is kind of a middle ground. Some people come from religion into spirituality, and some go from spirituality into religion. So it's both a gateway drug. It's basically a darban. You meet it when you're going inside religion, and you meet it when you're coming out of religion. Jack says, "Do you think atheism will rise in Hindu?" Okay, already answered that. So comment ko copy paste mat karo bhai. Shuddhodhan says, "What is your privilege when you say you're an upper caste Hindu male compared to other fellow Indians?" A lot of people ask me this question. I have no answer. Do you? Well, for one thing, when I ask people for water, they give it to me. Right? If I go to someone's house, they don't hand me water in a separate vessel. They don't make me sit on the floor. If I go tell someone my second name, they don't say, "नहीं नहीं हम तो यहाँ पे सिर्फ ब्राह्मणों को रखते हैं." If I go to uh, a job interview, my resume does not get judged on the basis of my second name. If I am studying in a university, my professors don't tell me that I am a product of reservation. This all is privilege. We don't realize it because we never see it happen because it does not happen to us. If you keep your eyes open, and by the way, if I sit on a horse, nobody will shoot me. If I sit on a chair, nobody will murder me. These are all privileges. Samar says, "Ashwati, you can make one-time donation on vimo.stack.me. Replace the underscores with full stops." Yes. Aditya says, "Arts is seen to be for those people who score badly at school." Yeah. आर्ट्स के अंदर जितने बच्चे जाते हैं वो इसलिए जाते हैं क्योंकि उनको साइंस या कॉमर्स में नहीं मिलता है। कुछ मेरे जैसे होते हैं जो आर्ट्स के अंदर जाते हैं क्योंकि उनको आर्ट्स के अंदर जाने की इच्छा थी। सो Batman Begins says, "Salve brother, just accept your privilege and be humble and empathetic towards others who don't have it at the same time." Subhanshu says, "Bro, I was brainwashed into thinking that capitalism cannot end. I imagined end of world, but yeah." So this is a common saying. In fact, I'm trying to get a scholar on the show to talk about all this, reforming capitalism or discarding capitalism and all that. But the saying that Subhanshu is talking about is that it is easier to imagine the end of the world but not the end of capitalism, which is ridiculous because for the most of human history, we were not capitalist. Most of human history, human beings were not capitalist. It's something that started after the Industrial Revolution. Um, this is a good point. I don't know what their intent is, but I will address this. An unorganized majority is always weaker to a jihadi minority. Yeah, guess who else says this? Muslims in Muslim majority countries like Pakistan से ये छोटे-छोटे जो कम्युनिटीज़ हैं ना क्रिश्चियंस और हिंदूज़ की, ये हमारे धर्म को खराब कर देंगे, देश को बर्बाद कर देंगे, हम मुसलमानों को एक होना पड़ेगा। और इंडिया में हिंदू कहते हैं ये जो छोटी-छोटी माइनॉरिटीज़ हैं ना, ये हमको बर्बाद कर देगी, हमें हिंदुओं को एक होना पड़ेगा। और अमेरिका में व्हाइट क्रिश्चियन सुप्रीमेसिस्ट जो हैं, इवेंजेलिकल क्रिश्चियंस, वो कहते हैं जो मैक्सिकन, ब्लैक और ये मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशंस है, ये हमको बर्बाद कर देंगे, हम व्हाइट क्रिश्चियंस को एक होना पड़ेगा। ये कोई नई चीज़ नहीं है, ये हर देश के मेजॉरिटी को लगी हुई बीमारी है। हर देश में यही होता है। जहाँ भी मेजॉरिटी होती है एक पर्टिकुलर कम्युनिटी की, उनको हमेशा लगता है कि हम ज़्यादा नंबर में हैं, इसीलिए देश एक तरह का है। जैसे ही हम गए, ये देश बर्बाद हो जाएगा। और उसका कारण होता है कि वो अपनी कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी को देश के साथ इक्वेट करते रहते हैं। वो समझते हैं कि देश उनसे है, जबकि सच ये है कि हम सब देश से हैं। ये बकवास लाइन है और ये हिंदुत्ववादियों को हमेशा पढ़ाई जाती है और इसमें कोई दम नहीं है। अपने आउटलुक को वाइड करो, बाहर के देशों को देखो, दुनिया भर के पॉलिटिकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट को देखो और अपने कंडीशन को उस सब के हिसाब से इवैल्यूएट करने की कोशिश करो। और ये मैं गुस्से में नहीं बोल रहा हूँ, मैं वही चूतिया मैं ये तुम जिस प्रकार के चूतिया हो, मैं वो चूतिया था। सॉरी अबाउट द सी वर्ड। प्रॉमिस दैट्स द लास्ट टाइम आई यूज इट। Agastya says, if you end up reading comments this far, 26 was for counting the age, guy's age. Buckethead comment is about the bucket. Okay, metaphor. Deepankar says, revelation. I was an ex-bhakt too. Unlearned the by default garbage fed into my brain by family, relative, society. You have to learn few important things. You were an ex-bhakt. Oh, okay. You were an ex-bhakt. I thought you were an ex-bhakt and now you're a bhakt. ओके, ये मेरे प्राइवेट चैट में दोस्त लोग मैसेज कर रहे हैं जो देख रहे हैं। पीयूष सेज, एथीस्ट भी गॉड गिफ्टेड बोल दिया, अब भक्त कहेंगे देखा वेमो झूठा है। रुचि सेज, recently saw Savarkar's God video on Epiphat. This is typical Hindu atheist privilege. Places like these are where the Hindu atheists originate from and find validation. Exactly. And I kind of made that video. I was in charge of Epiphat and that video happened under my direction. And that was when I was probably slightly out of the Hindutva fold, but not completely. And that is when I was making this. रौनक says, sir, is modern spiritual leaders, अरे यार वही क्वेश्चन कितनी बार कॉपी पेस्ट करते हैं लोग। Sharad says, to become Muslim population more than Hindu population, mathematically we need 13,000 crore population of India. Let me scroll a little bit. Batman Begins says, for Muslim overpopulation theory, जाके पहले population theory पढ़ो in a subject of geography as topic, as how TFR played a role in that. Piyush says, it's unreal. How can someone with those thoughts change? Guess your old friends did this. मैं तो निकाल दिया भक्त को लाइफ से. Yeah. Even I recommend that if someone changes, it is going to be because they examined their own beliefs. If you find that you have hope in someone changing, engage with them. If you find that you can't and that they're making your life worse and your environment worse, please, by all means, feel free to kick them out. राइट, सो मैं अभी सर 1 hour 45 minutes पे हूँ, मैं और थोड़ी देर में इसको बंद कर दूंगा. सो आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू रीड ऑल द कॉमेंट्स. प्लीज स्टार्ट टाइपिंग इमोजीज इन द कॉमेंट्स सो दैट व्हेन आई गेट टू दैट पॉइंट आई शुड स्टॉप. उसके बाद वाले कॉमेंट नहीं पढ़ पाऊंगा. संदीप says, glad that you are able to open your mind. Not everyone is able to. Okay. Piyush says, it's okay. I was in the same situation 2 years back. Slowly and slowly, I found many people like Vimo and more through the internet. Amit Kumar says, we are all same. That is why like should be as same as what? I don't understand. Artsy Highway says, Shashi Tharoor also writes soft Hindutva books and sounds like an intellectual. My liberal friends are reading them and starting to move a little right wing. I'm scared, honestly. Yeah, so Shashi Tharoor has always been a little Like he deifies Hinduism and associates it with India's history. He is also like, so here's the thing. Shashi Tharoor will probably be classified as an intellectual, but not a right wing intellectual. But the kind of works that he has made in recent past are feeding the Hindutva narrative to a certain extent. That's all I can say about that. Batman Weekend says only internet, no real person, because most of them are andhbhakt and living in delusion. Most of our parents' buttons are paused in the 90s. Yash says, do you think religion is glorified so much that people think becoming a monk is more respectful than any scientist, and that is why we don't produce great Nobel laureates? We have produced Nobel laureates in science as well as arts. India, Rabindranath Tagore is one of them. J.C. Bose is one of them. The reason religion does cause people to think that religion is superior to science, and the impact of religion, thanks to the internet, has risen in recent years, and that may have been one of the reasons why uh, we are where we are culturally. But I don't think the Nobel Prize is an indicator of that. Pratik says, really appreciate your commitment, emotional and intellectual. Glad to join live. Been wanting for so long. Thank you, Pratik Ali. Is that your name really? Pratik Ali. Nice name. Anand says, religion khatre mein is a smoke screen. Religion is personal and unaffected by others around. They're actually interested in the privilege of power, caste, majority, etc. Disguised motive. Yeah, exactly. Summer says, I was today years old when I realized AMA stands for Ask Me. You didn't know AMA ka full form? Hey, hey. AMA is first originated on Reddit, where, by the way, I have done an AMA on Reddit India. Um, Vairu says, I went into college in 2019. These 3 years away from home and the various interactions I had with people here, I completely changed my worldview from the conditioning I was put through. That's good. That's good. Glad this happened before my first vote. Vairu, you are not an adult? How are you so smart? Arey, ye kya hai? Hold on. Off. Hmm. Someone else has become a member. Hold on. Shreyas Gautam has become a member. Shreyas, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate it. Wait. Samad says the problem with Nota is that it is not counted as valid vote. So even if more than 50% of voters opt for Nota, still the candidate with highest percentage of vote in the remaining pool wins. Yes. Taranga says you are now a million years behind comments, Vimo. Yeah, मैं emojis तक पहुंचने का wait कर रहा हूँ बस. Golu says me going back to doing homework. Good night and happy weekend, everyone. Good afternoon to me. Uh, Rational says if a lot of people vote Nota, won't it encourage new people to enter politics? Probably it might have a long term benefit. If Nota causes the candidate to change, if, like, a place voting happens, a lot of people vote Nota and more than 50% people vote Nota, the political parties think, Arey yaar, candidate change karna chahiye, and then they change it. Then sure, it might. But if they don't, then no. So I think the provision, I don't know if this is already a provision. Maybe I'm completely talking out of my ass here. But if voting nota is legally made to, like, अगर एक जगह पे ये हुआ तो जितने भी कैंडिडेट्स हैं उन सबको बदलना पड़ेगा, then then that's a good idea. Here, so this is a gentleman called Pradyuman Dev Jodha, who is part of the Indian comic book community, and he has come here to embarrass himself by saying Vimo turned on right wing in his pursuit of simping woke bong chicks, which is so many kinds of ridiculous and toxic that I cannot even put a list on it. A, you don't know what woke means. B, C पे चला गया. B, it's patriarchal. Women are not objects in pursuit of whom people change their political ideology. And what do you have against bongs, man? The Batman Begins says, Golu bhai, happy wala birthday. Amit Kumar says, Golu bhaiya ke birthday ke naam par hi kar do. Ronak says, but sir, is there any party who is not to BJP because for winning they have that? I think people have to be not demanding for religion. What is it? Ronak, I don't understand the question. Let me read it again. Is there any party who is not to BJP because for winning they have to that? I think people have to be not demanding for religion. What is your thought? I don't understand the question. What do you mean? Anand says, which is your favorite book? Star Maker by Olaf Stapledon. Batman Begins says, unicorns are game of evaluation. Maybe they will not be. Okay, economic question. Sorry. Kunal says, I always questioned existence of God and deep inside, whenever I went to temples, I used to ask myself, what should I ask to God? Will he listen? And I was on the verge of denying God, and then I found you. Wait, you are on the verge of denying God, and then you found me and you denied God, or did you not deny God? What happened? Because it seems like you're saying that I made you not deny God. अमित says, कौन रह गया अब जिसने अटेंडेंस मार्क नहीं की है? कौन है ये डिफॉल्टर? Love your dedication, says Rational. Thank you, Rational. Uh, Dragoon says, one of the former chief ministers of Bihar, Jitan Ram Manjhi, said that Ram is not a god and just a character in a story. What do you think about it? I think he's just throwing the towel. Ram is a character in a story. इसमें इसमें कोई doubt नहीं है. I wouldn't say he's just a character in a story, because myths have wider implications. They are stories, but no story is just a story. And if you want to understand more about this, you can, go to my main channel and watch some videos. Sridhar says, why do you think right wing exists? What should right wing do for society? Why is right wing made? Right wing is a okay. So I think these are questions that you can probably Google. What does Google for what does right wing mean, and what have right wing politics historically meant in various countries? The Chinese right wing, Chinese left wing is different from French right wing, left wing. ठीक है? So इसके ऊपर थोड़ा research करो and you will find the answers. Where he says, will you keep this live chat visible once it is uploaded? Yes, sir, I will. Akash says, please do a live stream with Shwetab Gangwar, please. And the way you're talking about this is overwhelming. As I was a hardcore bhakt and now I am a rational person, I owe my gratitude toward people like you. Thank you, Akash. I don't know if if my channel is big enough for people like, I don't even know what Shwetab Gangwar makes. So I'll maybe check out their channel and then see. Ex Hindu Atheist says, how are you? Good, good. Amit Kumar says, same like, same watching. Okay. Someone says, C word count in today's live 3. Yeah. I promise मैं आज से C word का इस्तेमाल नहीं करूँगा इस पे. Because I think that is a gendered insult and I've been avoiding it for quite some time, but yeah. Okay, so emojis have happened. Shreyas Gautam is a new member I already mentioned. Ronak is also a new member. Thank you, Ronak, for becoming a member. Appreciate it. Ashwati has sent a super chat of 1,000 rupees. Thank you, Ashwati. I always felt guilty for not being able to support you financially, because I have greatly benefited from the community you have built with great labor. You help deflect right wing induced despair, survive isolation of the lockdown, and grieve personal loss. Thank you, Ashwati. And I hope I have told you at least once how much you, Taranga, Nadir, Swapnil, etc. mean to me. Because the community has, like, you guys keep saying that you have benefited from the community as if it's something I made, but the community has given me so much that I cannot possibly thank you enough for all of it, including this 1,000 rupees, by the way. And I'm not even talking just about money. The companionship, the looking after me, the checking up on me after, like, some of you may not know this, but my best friend Manoj passed away a year ago. And this community was there for me then, just as it is for me right now, along with my friends Hemant and Pragya. And I don't think I would have survived it had it not been for all you guys. So thank you. Ronak says with a 200 rupees super chat, but sir, is there any party who is not like BJP? Because for winning, they have to impress majority. I think people have to be not demanding for religion. What your thought? I'm a 16-year-old atheist. Okay, thank you, Ronak. So there are two aspects to this. One, why should appealing to majority always mean appealing to the religious majority? And two, yes, if we allow religion to become a lens through which we perceive society, if religion is a weapon that we leave out in the open, it's a big, sharp, shiny sword, we leave it out. someone will come and pick it up. So the idea is to not fight against a political party because it is holding the sword. The idea is to question the need for the sword itself. And that is the reason behind my little bit of atheism activism. The answer to your question is yeah, if the sword is available, anyone will come and pick it up. The BJP uses it. The Aam Aadmi Party uses it. The Congress uses it. Trinamool Congress uses it. There are parties in the south that use it. There are parties in the west and east that use it. So it's not that the BJP alone has a monopoly on the religious politics. But if you look at the first question, which is that appealing to the majority, why should it always mean appealing to religion? Does the majority does not have any other lens through which to look at itself? Is unemployment not an issue that the majority cares about? Is uh, uh, is the economy not an issue that affects the majority? So the issue is that the issue is religion. If the issues become something else, this problem may still solve itself. We need to devalue religion in society so that no political party thinks after looking at it कि हाँ ये तलवार उठाने बड़ी अच्छी तलवार है इसको उठा लेते हैं. Meghnad is here. Meghnad says BJP is appealing to the biggest majority in India, the poor who are totally dependent on the government for survival. Yep. Meghnad has a different perspective on this because he's been on the ground and I cannot question it. But I think the BJP also appeals to, religious majoritarianism, which I'm sure Meghnad doesn't disagree with. Samad says, fun trivia. Rudolph and Adolf were brothers who owned a major shoemaking brand. During air raids from Britain, they went inside the underground bunkers which Germany had created. Adolf and his wife were already inside. When Rudolph was entering from the other side, Adolf's wife said, the dogs are here. Samad says, today these companies are leading apparel shoe brands. Guess them both. I don't know. But this is fascinating, if true. Um, Ronak says, sir, it is my own money. Okay. Pradhiman says, excuse my self-embarrassing comment up there. Please keep propagating your views. I regularly read your Artless and YouTube videos. Okay. Thank you, Pradhiman. And sorry if I sounded mean. Meghnad says, I agree. Okay. Moksh says, the Batman Begins. Yeah, I agree with you, but most of the time it doesn't happen. Okay. So, abhi comments khatam ho rahe. And what I am going to do is, I'm going to tell you guys one last time about how you can support the channel. If you want to make a one-time donation to my work, because I write, I make live streams, podcasts, etc., you can do so at vimo.stck.me. If you want to support me on Patreon, the URL is patreon.com/vimo. And if you want to watch my main channel, it is at youtube.com/vimo. This one is Vimo Live. यहाँ पे Wednesday और Saturday को live stream होती है, जैसे आज हुई. And if you want to listen to this podcast as an audio form, in audio form, you can do so at vimo.in. That's the address, www.vimo.in. Having said all of that, let me just return. There are a bunch of new comments. Hold on. Taraga said, good night, dost. Moksh Patel, sorry. Adidas and Puma was the answer to that question. Dear XYZ says, Vimo, you should also do a joint live stream with Ghalib Kamal, or at least join his stream to counter Hindutva propaganda. I have actually spoken with him on another channel. Hold on. It's called Human with Science. Yeah. I went there and he was a guest and I was also a guest and we spoke to each other a little bit. But I think his channel is very big. And if at some point of time it becomes possible, I'll go and talk. But there is no plan to do that right now. Dhirubhai says, hey, Vimo, almost 2-hour live stream. Wow. Yeah, man. हो जाता है कभी-कभी गलती से. But yeah, so what I will do is I'll take your leave for today. It was a long live stream and I, oddly enough, did not even keep water with me. So my throat is literally dying. Let me take a little bit of. Wow, it burns. Talk for 2 hours and it burns. Right. So that was it for today's live stream. Thank you to everyone who became a member. Thank you to everyone who sent super chats. The membership button is down there. If you want to click the join button, you can, and then you can join the Discord server where there's a voice chat section that you can join, and we can talk to each other if you want to on Not all the time, but yeah, I'll announce sessions and we'll talk. So, having said that, I will take your leave and I'll see you all on Wednesday. Oh, Sunday हो गया. रात के 12 बज गए. I'll see you on Wednesday at 10 p.m. here. Tomorrow at 10 p.m. I will do a live stream on Instagram. So you can join there if you want to. Instagram.com/Vimo is my handle. Until then, thank you for listening and bye bye.